Finally, in 2025, Gerard Butler spoke out. Around 300. What he said was terrifying. They were taking someone to the hospital every day. The film earned $450 million. But there was complete mayhem behind the scenes. They were spearing actors in the eye. Simple scenes were breaking bones. He barely made it through the filming process. He remained silent about the true events for 18 years. In regards to the most hazardous film ever made in Hollywood, he is now speaking the truth. Gerard Butler was born in Paisley, Scotland, on November 13, 1969. At 6 months of age, his parents relocated the family to Montreal, Canada. The relocation, however, was short-lived. Only 18 months later, his parents divorced. Margaret, his mother, brought Gerard and his brothers back to Scotland. Unbelievably, Gerard remained unaware of his father's whereabouts for the following 14 years. When Gerard was 16 years old, that stillness came to an end. When he got home from school, his stepfather only instructed him to wear his jacket. His dad was present. Even though Gerard didn't cry much, he sobbed for 5 hours. After that, he was able to spend summers in Toronto and even travel to Jamaica with his father, who had before been a mystery. Gerard stood out at school. He was not only intelligent, but also popular and motivated. He was elected head boy at St. Mirren's in St. Margaret's High School, the position of highest student. He then enrolled at the University of Glasgow to pursue a legal education. It was among the top law schools in the nation. In addition to concentrating on his studies there, he also rose to the position of president of the Law Society, despite his later admission that he had essentially bribed his way into it. But he was well liked. He exuded charisma, confidence, and vitality. It was widely believed that he would become a prosperous lawyer. But Gerard was concealing something significant. Speed was a rock band, and Gerard was on stage singing at night while his classmates were buried in their textbooks. He sang passionately despite lacking any official training. Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, and The Doors were among the artists he covered. He worked through legal theory during the day. He pursued an adrenaline rush that books were unable to provide by performing in packed clubs at night. These late nights were the first indication that his true vocation wasn't law enforcement, even though he wasn't aware of it yet. It was evident in the energy, performance, and unadulterated passion. Then the moment that made all the difference arrived. He was 27 years old and a trainee attorney at an Edinburgh business. He had a drink at the Edinburgh Festival just a week before qualifying. The law firm immediately fired him. He had spent years building it, and now it was all gone, just 7 days away from completion. However, that agonizing moment might have prevented his death. It was later stated by Gerard that he did not believe he would have lived if he had remained in law. He was drinking too much now. He drank until he lost all memory of his actions. He acknowledged that his path was one of self-destruction. He moved to London after the firing and absolutely stopped drinking. Reality set in after we arrived in London. Any employment he could find had to be his. He handled obnoxious patrons while waiting tables. His job was telemarketing. Phoning random people and pleading with them to purchase items they didn't want. Selling toys on the street, however, was the most peculiar employment of them. At market stalls, he demonstrated how to utilize toys to children in the hopes that their parents would purchase. He was just about making it. After almost pursuing a career in law, he now works various jobs to make ends meet and eat. It was dismal and exhausting, but he persisted. Even though every job seemed pointless, he was growing tougher as a result. Then the unexpected occurred. He met a former member of the Scottish Youth Theatre. She worked as a casting director presently. In addition to getting back in touch, they began dating. He was hired by her as her assistant. Thus, he was seated in the audition. While attempting to become an actor himself, assisting actors in landing opportunities. The sensation was odd. Though not quite close enough, he was quite close to what he desired. He spent every day watching folks try out. A few were excellent. A few were terrible. From the inside, he witnessed the entire operation. And each time he distributed a screenplay or set up a meeting, he thought, that might be me. After a while, it was him. She once took him to an audition for Stephen Berkoff's Coriolanus, a Shakespeare play. According to some, she set everything up. According to others, Butler pleaded with Berkoff in a coffee shop for the opportunity to read. He put his all into it, anyway. He had more energy than everybody else, according to Berkoff, who immediately threw him out. Became a member of the ensemble in one version. He took the lead in the other. On one point, however, both versions concur. His life altered at this very moment. He moved from distributing scripts to playing the lead role in the show. His age was 27. It was his first acting gig of any kind. And after receiving the part, he claimed that it felt like the happiest moment of his life, as if something inside of him had finally clicked when he walked home. In the movie Mrs. Brown, he had a little part in 1997. Miramax purchased it and released it globally, but it was originally intended to be a low-key BBC television project. It brought Judi Dench to the top of the awards season and ultimately brought in $13.2 million. Although he had a little role, the movie brought him to the Cannes Film Festival. He had never before seen the spotlight on a worldwide scale. A little part in Tomorrow Never Died was given to Butler in the same year. He played a lineless crewman and was on screen for hardly a second. The second, however, was crucial. The Bond movie was the fourth biggest blockbuster of 1997, earning $339 million. When it debuted on the same day as Titanic, it lost its top spot at the box office. However, Butler was able to observe firsthand how high-budget movies were produced while working on that set. He was absorbing as much as he could. Even though his identity was unknown at the time, Dracula 2000 was his first true leading role. It appeared to be a major break. There were huge expectations and a $54 million budget. But the film was a failure. Didn't recoup its expenses and barely made $47 million. But Butler made a difference. Even his Scottish accent was audible through vampire makeup. It made his Dracula feel more unique, unvarnished, and authentic rather than detracting from the part. He demonstrated his ability to change his physical appearance by bulking up for the role. Something he would subsequently use as his signature in action films. Shortly after, he played the lead in the Attila miniseries. Butler had the opportunity to display more than simply horror or strength during the roughly 3-hour-long event. During severe drama and fight sequences, he portrayed a famous warrior. Hollywood saw from the project that he could handle more significant roles. After his 30th birthday, everything changed. At that point, he relocated to Los Angeles. His birthday is November 13, 1969. In late 1999, he made the decision. Lacked reserves, a backup plan, and anything in line. He had been working call centers, serving tables, and even demonstrating toys at fairs in London. At first, he only wanted to be famous, he later acknowledged, but he came at the perfect moment. Actors who didn't look like your average movie star were sought after by Hollywood for their strength and drama. Suited this situation. After moving, he landed 4 big parts in a year. I saw him in Dracula 2000. Lara Croft. The Cradle of Life, Dear Frankie, The Phantom of the Opera, and Tomb Raider. Considering that he had only been in theater a few years before, it was a quick ascension. The studios only wanted to see that Butler could direct a film, and Dracula 2000 proved that despite its box office failure. During the 2003 filming of Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, and The Cradle of Life, Gerard Butler was in a situation that might have been disastrous. Hanging upside down, he was practicing a scene of action. When firing a prop gun was required. The issue was that he was powerless to change the direction of the gun. He shot without thinking. Angelina Jolie was just barely spared a bullet wound to the face. Years later, he acknowledged that everything could have gone very badly. He referred to it as crazy. Even with all the safety precautions in place, things can still go wrong. Many people were become aware of the dangers of movie sets by that incident, particularly in light of recent prop gun deaths. took a surprising surge a year later. His role in The Phantom of the Opera was that of the Phantom. He was not meant to be involved. The studio first wanted Hugh Jackman, but Joel Schumacher, the director, had to go elsewhere because Jackman was busy working on Van Helsing. He had watched Butler in Dracula 2000, and according to some click, Butler lacked vocal training. Although he had previously only performed with a rock band, he put in a lot of practice and shocked everyone when he sang the song of the night for the first time. Even Andrew Lloyd Webber was impressed. The film made over $154 million worldwide, received 3 Oscar nominations, 3 Golden Globe nominations, and Butler was nominated for a Satellite Award. However, most people didn't think highly of it. Rotten Tomatoes gave it only 33%, while over 250,000 people gave it an 84% popcorn meter rating. The movie, according to Webber, was a very good adaptation of the stage production. In the same year, Butler displayed another side. He portrayed a subdued, poignant character in the Scottish drama Dear Frankie. Pretending to be the long-lost father of a deaf youngster, he played a stranger. Unlike his previous appearances, the picture was slow and sensitive. He never engaged in combat. He did not yell. He merely shared soccer stories and sea-themed novels with a small youngster. Playing the mother was Emily Mortimer. Despite its lack of glitz, the movie left a lasting impression. In order to demonstrate his genuine concern, Butler's character returns the money he was paid at the end. He demonstrated his versatility by winning the Capri Breakout Actor Award. The movie received more than 23,000 votes on IMDb, earning it a 7.7 out of 10. The emergence of Butler was not unexpected. He started along the correct path in 2000 when he took on 2 important tasks. One was the miniseries Attila, in which he portrayed Attila the Hun. Initially, producers wanted someone more well-known, but they kept returning to Butler. He put a lot of effort into getting the lead in Dracula 2000. Additionally, he had little but significant cameos in the past, such as in Tomorrow Never Dies in 1997. He also saved a small boy from drowning while filming Mrs. Brown. He received a Certificate of Bravery from the Royal Humane Society for that. He was establishing his name gradually. Fans began discussing him online in 2005, posting his interviews and video footage. The pivotal moment then arrived. Gerard Butler became King Leonidas, not simply a character, according to ChatGPT. Most people, however, are unaware of how bizarre, draining, and revolutionary the experience actually was. Filming for the entire film 300 took place in 60 days at the now-defunct Ice Storm Studios in Montreal. Not on actual battlefields or mountains, but on blue screens. Most of the scenes were fictitious. There was only one photo taken outside, showing horses moving across a field. The addition of walls, skies, blood, and armies came later. The crew decided to go with blue instead of green because it complemented the crimson capes of the Spartans. It may have seemed insignificant, but it had a profound impact. There were about 1,300 visual effects shots in the 1000 and 23-shot movie. That amounted to 8,731 distinct visual effects pieces produced over the course of a year by 10 different businesses. The performers were surrounded by nothing but emptiness, so even the unusual fact that the film was shot in order didn't really assist. Later, Gerard Butler claimed that he felt totally disengaged because there was nothing to look at or react to, just a sea of blue behind him and another actor in front of him. One of the reasons they brought in Tim Connolly was because of that mental disconnect. Not all he was a stunt double. In addition to playing Leonidas' father in the flashback, he taught Butler and performed his risky moments. Despite not being intended as a major message, it turned out to be symbolic. After creating the Spartan warrior behind the scenes, Connolly appeared on screen as the story's creator. Real life and fiction started to blend together in an odd way. Butler did in fact sustain injuries while filming. Due to foot drop and a torn tendon in his arm, Connolly's assistance was even more crucial. It's uncommon for a father figure in Hollywood to serve as both a trainer and a guardian in real life. People tend to overlook another point in the film: the feathered helm of Leonidas. Zack Snyder made a daring choice, yet all real Spartans wore plumes. Leonidas was the only recipient of the black plume. In battles involving hundreds of warriors, it was simple to identify the king. You couldn't help but stare at him. That plume turned into a kind of unspoken storyteller. It led you through the confusion. Additionally, because the wars were fictitious, it was helpful for editing. The plume offered the crew something tangible to track, even though the majority of the army was digital. A link between every shot. Black plume imitation helmets are still available for purchase online today. It's no longer just a prop. It's a fragment of film history. A Hollywood trainer wasn't the source of the training that turned Gerard Butler become King Leonidas. It was made by mountain climber Mark Twight, who treated the group as though they were getting ready for a mission that would determine their fate. There were 4 complete months of instruction. It took a long time to prepare, and just 17 of the participants finished the final exam. That only made up half of the team. Dwight did more than simply shove them. He saw each repetition in movement. It was not considered valid if it was not flawless. Some actors' performances genuinely suffered as a result of the pressure. It wasn't merely a workout, it was a mental battle. Building trust among the actors and ensuring that it was reflected on camera were his 2 main objectives. The final exam, known as the 300 exercise, was extremely difficult. 25 pull-ups are performed first, followed by 50 135-pound deadlifts, 50 push-ups, 50 box jumps onto a 2-foot platform, and 50 floor wipers. 50 cleans and presses, followed by 25 pull-ups with a 36-pound kettlebell. Not much of a break in between. Others took up to 45 minutes, while others only took 15. Each round, however, had to be completed in a single stroke. That's where the name originated. 300 total repetitions. Most people don't realize that this wasn't a regular occurrence. The test to determine who was prepared was a one-time event. It was successful. After you've performed more than 200 repetitions, the deadlift weight becomes something different entirely. A barrier that not everyone could overcome. This is when things get wild. For the most part, they never did the same workout twice. Daily, Dwight made a difference. Unintentionally, the routines were random. Actors never have a chance to get comfortable. One day, they were doing tire flipping. They were using 50-pound kettlebells to lift till they were exhausted the next day. No routine, no familiarity. The goal was to maintain the body in a state of shock and survival. They quickly altered as a result. Part of it was mental pressure. You cannot prepare while you are unaware of what is about to happen. Because of its unpredictable nature, it was one of the most rigorous fitness regimens ever employed in Hollywood. And for years, it shaped contemporary training methods. It was the toughest thing he had ever done, according to Gerard Butler. Actually, he felt ill after working out. It wasn't just difficult, he claimed, it was cruel. It altered him in some way, even if the emotional side was equally as awful as the physical. Every drop of sweat and every rep, he allegedly claimed, remained in his eyes for a long time. Upon donning the Spartan armor, he felt like a lion. Not a phony actor. He had faith in it. The change was genuine. Despite being 40 pounds overweight at the beginning, some performers emerged as fighters. The scores were recorded daily. It evolved into a contest. Director Zack Snyder also participated. For the sole purpose of testing himself against the same pain, he trained every morning at 8:30 before anyone else arrived. Butler then made a shocking statement in January 2025. He said, "Remember that someone was being taken to the hospital every day, while promoting Den of Thieves 2. It was serious. He intended it." The movie made almost $450 million on a budget of $65 million, but there was a lot of suffering behind the accomplishment. He mentioned to co-star O'Shea Jackson Jr. in that same interview how the set frequently felt like a battlefield. Although it was not visible in the polished finished product, the cast suffered greatly as a result. Butler's memory of the injuries was similar to a war reports list. The eye of one actor was struck by a spear. A fight situation resulted in another person breaking his ankle. Nor were those anomalies. They frequently occurred. He referred to it as crazy. The spears and swords were still metal, but they were dulled. Actors wounded people when they stepped half a second too late or missed their marks. The eye damage occurred during a routine incident. That demonstrates the true risk of it. Sometimes he would turn back and find someone already down, according to Butler. The mayhem became the norm. They adjusted to it. Butler was also not spared for very long. Despite making it through 300, he had a hard time filming his following feature, Butterfly on a Wheel. There was Pierce Brosnan in a car chase scenario. On a rooftop, Brosnan was expected to shatter hard, but he didn't. He used a Range Rover instead, slamming Butler into a 3-foot wall. It broke his neck, according to Butler, and that was immediately following the 300 punishment. His body was already disintegrating. A tendon in his arm had been pulled. He had damage to his hip flexor. In one limb, he even had nerve damage. It was all made worse by the crash. Even now, he is still affected by those injuries. And it's a perfect illustration of what happens to actors who switch between action roles without any downtime. The blood, the artificial, not the genuine kind, is even more unexpected. Only about 2 gallons of artificial blood were used in the production, whereas you would assume 300 used buckets. It's that simple. The majority of the blood was digital. The wounds, blood splatters, and sprays were all added later using computers. Therefore, hardly any fake blood was used throughout production, even though actors were hurting on site. It's ironic in a way. The gore wasn't genuine, but the injuries were. Gerard Butler was not interested in becoming another action hero. He could have spent the rest of his career playing tough guys after 300, which made over $456 million at the box office in 2007, erupted. Instead, he did something unexpected. In a matter of months, he starred in P.S. I Love You, a love drama with a $30 million budget, earned $156 million worldwide. Hollywood was shocked. Most assumed he would limit himself to slow-motion bouts and brutal conflicts, but he wanted to show that he was more than just a skilled swordsman. Thus, he continued to change everything. He had previously performed in musicals such as The Phantom of the Opera. Next followed obscene comedies like The Ugly Truth, which made almost $200 million. The industry, however, continued to entice him back into activity. The Has Fallen series, which he brought back, brought in almost $500 million on its own. According to critics, he was always categorized as an action hero. Butler had made his point, though. Nearly any genre might be led by him and maintain viewers. But things didn't go as planned. I Love You on the PS set. A moment of humor became hazardous. Crawled toward Hilary Swank while dancing around in boxers and suspenders. The idea was to make it absurd. He continued filming the sequence for 8.5 days. Then, however, a metal clip snapped off violently. It struck Swank's forehead directly, severely cutting her. The clip's teeth were visible due to the depth of the wound. They had to take her to the hospital right away. Within seconds, the set was emptied. Butler was left to weep alone himself while still in his panties. Frightened that he had wounded his co-star. The $30 million movie saw further delays as production halted while Swank recovered. That said, Butler's career took off in spite of such incidents. Worldwide, his films have brought in $3.25 billion. He surpasses celebrities like Jamie Foxx, Tobey Maguire, and Tom Hardy in that regard. His box office receipts in the United States alone amount to $1.9 billion. When you factor in the foreign figures, the total rises to $2.9 billion. Clearly, his appeal extends well beyond the United States. He did more than just act. Become a producer as well. He contributed to the production of various Has Fallen movies and The Law-Abiding Citizen, which increased his financial and political power. He was right on the money. Made enough money to start a franchise. On a $40 million budget, the second movie made over $50 million. Even if reviewers don't always like his initiatives, they usually turn a profit. Among his most surprising victories was animation. Stoic the Vast was voiced by Butler in the 2010 film How to Train Your Dragon. In addition to bringing him new fans, children, and relatives, the movie brought in $494.8 million. He continued to play the part in all three movies. He then joined the live-action version in 2025, despite the studio's initial preference for a more well-known actor. The director declined to have him replaced. That decision was successful. The remake became his highest-grossing movie ever with $519.1 million. Butler, who was stoic, demonstrated that he was both gentle and fierce, particularly when he was with his on-screen son. Mason Thames plays the part. However, his life off-screen has been equally intense. Butler lost control while living in Venice Beach in his 20s with a bunch of strong drinkers. He drank until his eyes went black. He claims that although most people believe he stopped drinking in 2011, he actually stopped more than 20 years ago. It felt like he was on a death wish. It isn't accurate. In 2012, things were different. He sought pain medication at the Betty Ford Clinic that year, not alcohol. The addiction began in 300 following a severe injury. A surfing mishap in December 2011 made it worse. At a renowned surf location in Northern California, Butler was struck by enormous waves while filming Chasing Mavericks. He barely made it out alive after being dragged underwater and banged into rocks. He was hurried to Stanford Medical Center after being hauled out on jet skis. He had to take heavy prescription medicines since the agony was so bad. When things were out of control, he checked himself into a recovery facility. Claimed to have no regrets after spending 3 weeks there. His life might have been lost in the surfing mishap. However, another near-death experience occurred in 2017. And it was stranger still. For muscle soreness during a lengthy stunt shot for Geostorm, Butler sought B-venom treatment. He received 10 times the recommended amount of venom, or 23 bee stings, even though it was meant to be harmless. With a racing heart, he closed his throat. He became swollen and shocked. He needed to go to the hospital. He tried again 4 days later with a reduced dosage, but the same thing happened. He had returned to the hospital. "That's insane," Jeff Goldblum even told him. The fire then broke out. The Woolsey fire spread throughout the county of Los Angeles. Needed to leave. On November 11th, he returned to find his Malibu home gone. Everything was set on fire. There were only ashes and bits of metal. A picture of himself standing in the wreckage was uploaded by him. Behind him, smoke was still rising. "Just welcome to my home in Malibu," he said. Wow. The fire burnt about 97,000 acres and destroyed more than 1,600 buildings. His house had not yet been repaired a year later. Throughout it all, Butler continued to assist others. In 2010, he gave the Mary's Meals founder an honor. He has been a steadfast supporter of the foundation ever since. He gives more than just cash. He has given lessons and assisted in food preparation in Haiti and Liberia. Today, the nonprofit provides daily school meals to 2 million children in 19 different nations. Alongside Leonardo DiCaprio and George Clooney, he was honored with the Cinema for Peace Honorary Award in Berlin in 2020. His romantic life, however, has been more intricate. He has been intermittently dating interior designer Morgan Brown since 2014. They've split up twice already. Once in 2020, and once in 2016. They're back together in 2022. Butler once declared his goal to establish a family and settle down by the age of 50. He is yet to pop the question at the age of 55. The 54-year-old Morgan is apparently sick of waiting.